Nicely done, Emily. And congratulations. So, our Community Champion Award is named after one of Dial Self's founders, Carolyn Herrick. In your program, you get to see a small glimpse into the amazing woman that she was, and her legacy continues through the work we continue to do here at Dial Self. So, to present this year's Carolyn Herrick Dial Self Community Champion Award, I am honored to once again call up Carolyn's daughter, Patty Marcus.
Good evening. I want to thank you all for coming, and thank you for your support of Dial Self. It's very important to me and my family. I'm here tonight on behalf of my mother, Carolyn Herrick. It's her name, and it's in her name that this award is given. If my mother were here today, I'm kind of glad after last week that she's not. She'd be very upset. But she would tell you that Dial Self was just very, very important to her, and she would urge all of you to continue your support of this wonderful organization. For those of you who don't know who my mother was, I'll tell you just a little about her. She spent most of her life involved with raising her own 10 children and helping other children in some capacity. For close to 20 of those years, she was a social worker in the Greenfield public school system. And every day she saw children who were in difficult and sometimes very dangerous situations. She used to say that those were the children that challenged her and inspired her to do more. She worked with children, with these particular children and their families, to try to build a healthy home environment for them so that they could thrive in the school setting, which would then provide them with a pathway to a happy and productive life. She did her work without judgment, understanding that sometimes, for one reason or another, families are not able to nurture and guide their children to a healthy life. She believed that it was our collective responsibility to advocate for these children and to give them the support that they need to become healthy and successful adults. Out of that belief was born the idea for Dial Self. Through her involvement with Social Workers for Peace and Justice, she worked to find legislative solutions to the tough challenges of funding programs for children. And she recognized that great programs and ideas are meaningless if they lack the funding to be implemented. Dial Self offers a safe and secure place for children and young adults to find their own path to success and happiness, but it needs funding to do its work. And this leads me to this year's recipient of the Carolyn Herrick Community Champion Award. Tonight's honoree, Rebecca Muller, is a fascinating and impressive woman. You can read about her long list of accomplishments in the program, but I want to talk a little bit about the kind of person that Rebecca is. So she's originally from New England, but her family traveled all over from community to community following her father's work. And that experience gave her a broader view of the world and an insight into how transitions can shape one's life. She began her professional life as an English major, but as a young adult, she came to realize that she was also an artist. And she likes the process of telling stories, whether using words or through her art. The concept of taking nothing but an idea and turning it into something meaningful truly excites her. She uses her words and her art as a way to change perspectives and to make people think about themselves and their environment in different ways. She's a creative thinker and a problem solver, and that is precisely the type of person needed to bring so many of the projects that she has been involved with to fruition. As a grant writer, she uses her writing skills and her problem-solving skills to help design programming and create successful grant proposals for Dial Self and other organizations. Her work on the many projects that provide housing for children and families will have a lasting effect on our communities for years to come. Like my mother, Rebecca is very humble. not bragging about what she does, but I can tell you that over the course of her 37 years in the Pioneer Valley, she has been instrumental in bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars, literally, in funding to support human service efforts in Western Mass. And now, more than ever, we need someone with her skills to maintain and expand the services that Dial Self offers. My mother would be very proud to see this award presented to Rebecca.
Find out. Ah, lovely.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Hi, I'm Rebecca. It's nice to be here and to see so many familiar faces and unfamiliar faces, but I feel like I know a little bit about who you are. So I usually sit in back rooms in front of computers and listen to the news. I haven't been doing much news listening lately. It's too grim. So anyways, that's by way of saying that I don't usually be in relationship to people in this way, but it's great to be here, and thank you. So I was at a meeting this morning, and it's a reflection devotional meeting that I go to periodically, and the topic that came up was, for me, the way I framed it was, what are the things that hold us? And so I knew I was coming to have this award tonight, and immediately I thought of that sort of somewhat forgotten word in Dial Self's name of youth and community services. And so it made me start thinking about community and how my place in the community and my place in relationship to Dial Self in the community. And the image that came to my mind was that of like a woven hammock, and that we've got these long strands for the length of the hammock, and then lots of shorter strands that go across. And weaving together, they form a safe and sturdy structure that we can be cradled in. And this was the image that came to me both about Dial Self and its work in the community and my relationship to Dial Self. And Dial Self has been one of the long strands in my life. And I met them when I was, was Melanie the first executive director, Phil? Second. So I go way back to the late 80s when I first started working in family and adult shelters in Hampshire and Franklin County. And Melanie was one of the people in the community that helped start the shelters. And so that began my journey of learning about youth services. And the other really impressive and unique thing about Dial Self was that you were a single-purpose organization, that I worked a lot for multi-service organizations, but you had this deepest commitment to just say, this is the niche we want to be. And I remember I was an administrator at ServiceNet, which is a larger multi-service agency in the community for about 18 years. And at one point, after Melanie left and there was just some loss of grants and things, and I was already working in the runaway and homeless youth programs down there, I remember we tried to get Dial Self to affiliate with ServiceNet. And I remember sitting in this office down in Northampton, and I think David Vogel was the ED back then, and I can't remember who else was at the meeting. It might have even been Elsa, for all I know. And then very gravely and politely saying, no, we think we want to stay who we are. And it was funny because I left a few years later, and then I went, and I've done a lot of work for many organizations, some single purpose and many others multi-purpose. But there's been a constant in all of this, and that is that I never got to, in a sense, work with Dial Self as an affiliated or merged organization. I will say thank God for them. But I brought them with me. And so I have found a way over the years to weave my work and my learnings and what I've been able to bring to other organizations into the work. So what that's looked like is, aside from writing all of their homeless and runaway youth grants for maybe, the last 15 years? Something like that. Collaboratively, longer than that. It's a terrible pressure, if I might add. You really must diversify, Phil. Okay. I work for an organization, I do a lot of work for an organization in Springfield, Greater Springfield, Hampden County, and I'm happy to say that I came to Phil and said, couldn't we get some of your AmeriCorps members down in our programs down here? And he said, sure, as a matter of fact. And we have 2 AmeriCorps members now, one working in Holyoke and one in Springfield. I've had the deep pleasure of working with Lisa Goldsmith, who is not here tonight, but she's done a tremendous amount of advocacy on the state level. And what Phil didn't say was how important your work here has been in creating an avenue for a new stream of funding into all of Massachusetts, and that's this transition age youth funds for young adults 18 to 24, which is probably some of the most flexible funds that's available, that really can almost do anything and help young people in any way that they need help as they achieve or accomplish this incredibly daunting task of achieving self-sufficiency without a lot of the benefits and safety nets that others of us have had. And it's remarkable that we finally have this tool for people. And so I had the pleasure of working on the grant that Phil referenced that now offers funds to Franklin, Hampshire, and Berkshire counties, and then I work for the agency that does the parallel services down in Hampden County. So we're all part of a region-wide unaccompanied homeless youth subcommittee, and we get to continue our work together. And I'll just end with one thing that I'm very serious. It's like one of the things that does keep me awake at night is when the 3 or 5 year competitive renewals come up for these federal grants, and knowing how much rests on it. And up until this past summer, I had 100%. I was batting, 1,000? Yeah, forgive me. I was batting 1,000 with this grant. And I took on a challenge of writing an urban grant for an agency that had never had a runaway and homeless youth grant before, and they were competing against an agency that already had one. And I'm happy, very, very happy to report that we didn't get it. So why am I happy? Because it broke the spell. So now I have failed. So the next time, which I believe is this spring or summer, we go after the transitional housing grant, I've already blown my batting 1,000 average, and so I don't have to worry about will it be this time with Dial Self. So thank you very much, and appreciate it.